Good afternoon, everybody, and you're very welcome to the latest Radio Centre Ireland webinar. And this time, the focus is on digital audio, a medium that has seen and enjoyed significant growth over the past number of years as both agencies and advertisers really understand the benefit that digital audio can provide. And in a very saturated medium, what advertisers and agencies and brands are really looking for is to find media that delivers high reach and high attention, and digital audio delivers on both those fronts. That's the backdrop to Bauer Media's decision to invest in some research, and they commissioned core research to do it, to really understand digital audio in terms of the benefits it provides to brands and the role it plays in people's lives. And I'm delighted that today we have Rob Timoney, who's Senior Vice President of Commercial Advisory at Bauer Media. And we have Naomi Staff, who's Managing Director of Core Research. And they're going to go through the research findings very shortly. When we finish doing the presentation in terms of the research findings, we'll also then be joined by Jen Walsh, Digital Board Director of Starcom, part of Core, and Ian McGrath, COO of Media in Dentsu. And we'll have a broader panel discussion about the benefits and the role that digital audio can provide to agencies and to advertisers going forward. But for now, I'm going to hand over to Rob and Naomi, who will go through the presentation.
Thank you very much, Kieran. Afternoon, everyone. Firstly, a big thanks to Kieran and Radio Centre Ireland for giving us the opportunity. Myself and Naomi are delighted to be here today to share this really exciting piece of research with you all. And it's all around exploring the power of digital audio. So it's a study to compare how audiences interact and consume digital audio versus the likes of connected TV, while also looking how digital audio weighs up against social media. So let's look at some of the background first as to why we conducted this research. I suppose as Bauer Media Audio, we're Ireland's largest commercial radio group, and we've a huge digital footprint and business in Audio XI. So we want to be sure we're creating pieces of research that are lifting the perceptions of audio as an advertising medium, as well as ensuring that we're building products that will answer advertisers' digital needs, and that would be through the likes of Audio XI. And we feel we have a really exciting product there. But rather than our advertisers and agency looking at like UK or even American data, we wanted to provide some Irish market data on how consumers are interacting and consuming digital audio, particularly through the lens and comparison to CTV and social media. So we wanted to explore the inroads digital audio has made in Ireland, and to do this, we partnered with the wonderful team in Core Research. So this study was conducted and in-field in October of 2024, and to a sample size that was robust and nationally representative of 1,000 adults in Ireland. So with that in mind, let's jump into the presentation and take you through some of the context on this. So before we jump into the findings, let's look at some of that wider market context. And this comes directly from the team at Core Research. You'll be glad to know it's not my personal musings. What the team at Core has found is the ability to deliver reach from some of the more traditional media channels, like TV as an example, is declining. For example, 100 TV hours now delivers 23% less reach each week than it did in the comparable time frame in 2015, and it's continuing to decline. And look, at the same time, we'll all be aware of this, the number of overall ads we are exposed to is increasing. On average, we're hit with an increase in ad exposure of around 4% each year. And if we extrapolate that trend out and it continues, by the end of 2026, it'll be approximately 3,500 ads every week. So with that in mind, there is a need to use more channels in a media mix, but then also find properties that deliver high levels of reach, engagement, and attention also. So let's look more specifically at the audio context. 2024 was another strong growth year for the wider audio industry, with radio revenue in the Republic of Ireland growing by 1.36% to €157 million. And Core report that digital audio grew by 14% to a little under 18 million. And we would have seen in Radio Centre Ireland's Irish audio report, it highlights continued near, I suppose, universal audio engagement among Irish adults, with 97% tuning in weekly to some form of audio content across radio, music streaming, or podcasting. But I suppose despite the rising popularity of digital audio, it still only represents 10% of that overall audio revenue in 2024. And as you can imagine, a much, much smaller slice of the digital advertising pie. So we're all aware that it's not as large as connected TV spend or the social media spend, despite in some cases having more hours spent with it on a weekly basis. But I won't steal Naomi's thunder on those pieces. But however, to meaningfully continue to grow digital audio spend like we see in markets like the US and the UK, we know as a medium that digital audio needs to start fishing for advertising revenues in those CTV and social media ponds. So with that in mind, quite enough from me for a start, and over to the wonderful Naomi from Core Research.
Thanks very much, Rob. Not too sure about the wonderful, but thank you very much. Rob mentioned there, before we jump into the analysis and some of the highlights of the report, Rob mentioned three things there at the start, which is what we looked at. So the three areas being digital audio, connected TV or CTV for short, and also for social media. So just so that everybody is aware as we're moving through the presentation, when we talk about digital audio, we're referring to formats like digital radio, we're referring to podcasts, to paid for, and also for free music streaming. When we're talking about connected TV, what we're referring to here is subscription-based video streaming content and services, and also on-demand video content. And then when it comes to social media, what we're referring to here is the popular social media outlets like Twitter or X, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and others then as well. And so that's just important to note, because as we move through the presentation, we would have been asking respondents to think of them in that way as opposed to individual elements. Okay, so to take you through some of the results then, so overall, looking at digital audio consumption, what we see and what came through, and bearing in mind, obviously it is claimed, but this is what came through, is that on average, people are claiming to spend over 13 hours per week consuming digital audio. So how this split out was 4 hours of digital radio, 2 hours of podcasts, 4 hours of paid music streaming, and 3 hours of free or ad-free ad-supported music streaming. So when you compare that to the likes of connected TV and to social media in terms of claimed usage, is 5 hours more than social media, and it is 3 hours more than connected TV. And also when you strip out the advertising, when you control, for advertising accessible media, digital audio is still ahead of social media and also ahead of connected TV as well. Okay, so that's the consumption. And even though it has the highest level of claimed consumption, the future is bright for digital audio. And we can see this in terms of our estimates from the Core Outlook report, but also in terms of what people say. So 1 in 10 people say that they plan to increase their time spent with digital audio in the next 12 months. So that's at an overall level across all 18 plus in Ireland. And when we look into this a little bit further, among those who are weekly users of digital audio, so heavy digital audio users, and that increases to up to 1 in 5 people saying that they plan to increase their time spent with digital audio. And that is higher than the likes of connected TV. And also what we're seeing from a social media perspective is that people are actively trying to restrict their use of social media. So 1 in 4 social media users saying that they plan to restrict it in the next 12 months. And furthermore, what we see here, and we asked specifically, are people willing to consume ads in return for great content? And what we can see on the right-hand side here is that there's a significant difference between digital audio users and their willingness to consume ads in return for great content versus the likes of connected TV and also social media users. So 3 in 5 versus 1 in 2, respectively, for connected TV and social media. So a positive view and overview of digital audio when it comes to consumption and willingness to consume into the future. On the next slide, we asked people about the best things about digital audio. We also asked this question about connected TV and also about social media as well. And while there was some similarities in terms of some of the themes that came up, these 4 that I'm going to show you through here would be the strongest ones that would have come through for digital audio. And they center around 4 key areas, which is customization, convenience, companionship, and easy integration. And I'll take you through what we mean by that now. Move on, great. Okay, so for customization, the emphasis here is on the variety that digital audio provides. So it allows individuals to go at their own pace. And I think what's really important and what's coming through here, and we see this in a lot of the mindset research that we conduct as well, is that pursuit of control that people have in a world that's gone just a little bit mad, that people have this pursuit of control in terms of what they're engaging with and what they're consuming. And for people that we spoke to, this feeling of being in control in terms of what, how, and when they consume is really important for them. For digital audio, they get to choose. They have the control and the empowerment when it comes to digital audio. The other one is convenience. So we have here no FOMO. But what we mean by this is that just that convenience, that it allows people to consume at their own pace, that they have the content that's always within reach, anytime and anywhere. So there's the feeling that they're not going to lose out if they miss something, that they can go back and listen to a podcast or choose a particular time that they love where they're actually relaxing, and they can choose a podcast or music or tune into their digital radio then as well. The next 2 are probably the more interesting ones that we found anyway, that came through as part of the research, which is companionship and easy integration. And I'll take you through them separately, but companionship is really interesting, a really interesting space then as well, that came through specifically strong for digital audio versus the likes of social media and connected TV. So this a sense of feeling that it keeps them company, or that it keeps them engaged. And I think this is really interesting as well when we also consider the consumer mindset and how people are feeling with, this loneliness epidemic that we have. And I think was reported last year about 20% of people say that they feel lonely nearly all or most of the time. So something like digital audio and the role that plays in terms of the companionship for people, be it something, a day-to-day task they're doing, or to elevate or leverage or enhance something that they're doing in their day. And that came through quite strongly. And the other is easy integration. So this is around the seamless integration into people's daily lives, be it the rock and roll daily life or the everyday things in every life, and the flexibility that it supports then as well. And in fact, when we looked at the level of multitasking that people did when consuming both digital, social media, and also connected TV, it was highest for digital audio. And we'll go through why that might be on the next slide. Hopefully that came up. Yeah. Okay, great. So we asked people about when they use different channels and what they might be doing at the same time. So what's really interesting that came through here was that digital audio is seen as the companion of choice for everyday life. So just if anyone can't see the text there, digital audio is the orange bar, connected TV is the green bar, and social media is the pink bar. I'm not going to go through all of these, but just wanted to demonstrate the impact, the flexibility, and the level of multitasking that can happen with digital audio compared to connected TV and also to social media. So for the likes of, as we call it, the rock and roll of life, cleaning, cooking, but also out and about in terms of walking, driving, commuting, getting ready at home, the companionship there, and working and studying. And also for the fitness fanatics, when you're running, much harder obviously to watch something or to scroll on social media when you're out and about too. So just there's a higher level of multitasking, but it also just demonstrates the impact that digital audio has to be, accessed at any time and with individuals for more time during the day, which leads to obviously the reason why the consumption or claimed consumption is much higher among people for digital audio. Okay. And then just comparing digital audio with connected TV just for a minute and taking them in isolation. So what we did was we looked at different benefits that might arise from the different channels. So some of these benefits could be like support, fulfillment, stimulation, access, and learning. We don't have all of these. You'll probably thank me. We don't have all of these on the slides, but just picking out a few that might be of interest. And what was most interest is when you look at it at an overall level, digital audio significantly outperformed connected TV on all but 2 channel benefits, and that one of those channel benefits that connected TV was higher among was for entertainment. But for all the other benefits, digital audio outperformed connected TV. So breaking this down into some of the areas, learning something new. So people claimed that and said that, you know, digital audio score is twice as likely, or people said that they were twice as likely to learn something new when consuming digital audio versus consuming connected TV. So that's 54 versus 28%. Also, digital audio score is much higher in comparison to connected TV in terms of authenticity. So you can see that score there of 52 versus 29%. Feeling or keeping somebody up to date then as well, which is probably no surprise given it was the content of connected TV versus digital audio. But again, 54% versus 20%. So 2.7 times more likely to feel like you're up to date with digital audio versus with connected TV. And the biggest, or one of the bigger areas as well, is around taking a with them. So that access point then as well. So 58% for digital audio versus 34% for connected TV. So, you know, it's easier to access. And as you saw from the previous slide, the range of different activities that people can use digital audio at the same time as doing something else then as well. Okay, and then on the next, we're looking at digital audio versus social media. So if we turn the hairs now to social media and look at it in comparison to digital audio, what we can see here is that, as I said in the outset, that 63% more time is spent consuming digital audio than social media, so significantly more. And again, this is obviously claimed, but this is what people are feeling and are also saying. What's really interesting is the next piece in the middle, which is the frame of mind that people have when consuming digital audio and social media. So the scores that you see in front of you are composite scores based on a range of metrics, both positive and negative, that we ask people about how they feel and what their frame of mind would be when they're consuming digital audio and social media. And what you can see there is that there's 11 percentage points in terms of people saying that they have positive feelings consuming digital audio versus social media. And some of those positives are feeling entertained, feeling relaxed, feeling positive. So that's interesting stat. The other is when we look at time well spent, and it probably won't come as any surprise in terms of, you know, what people are trying to do with social media and trying to limit the doom scrolling, but 52% would agree that listening to digital audio is time well spent versus 24% saying it is time well spent. So the 2 times more likely to say it's a good time to spend it's a good way to spend their time versus social media. And also for authenticity. So we saw that point in comparison to connected TV, and it also comes up here for the comparison with social media then as well. But it's just a lot stronger in terms of the authenticity. So 52% for digital audio versus 19% for social media, which is no surprise given, I suppose, the focus on misinformation, disinformation in social media, but very strong in comparison there for digital audio. And then also we looked, keeping with social media, we also looked at 3 other areas in terms of focus, stimulation, and future plans. So when it comes to focus, so there's more focused attention given to digital audio versus social media. There's also, when it comes to stimulation then as well, you know, we've got more focused in digital audio. So people are 25 percentage points more likely to feel more mentally stimulated with the digital audio in comparison to social media. So more engaged, more connected with the content, and more feeling more stimulated as a result, be it learning something new or enjoyment or connection. And finally, for the comparison between digital audio and social media, for this piece anyway, is that, as I mentioned at the start, 1 in 5 plan to increase the amount of time that they use or spend with digital audio, whereas in comparison, on the flip side, for social media, there's 1 in 4 who plan to decrease or limit or scale back the time that they spend on social media. Not always achievable, but that there's an intention there, at least, to increase digital audio and decrease social media spend and time. Okay, and finally, just another interesting point just to pull out that we wanted to share with you today was around the level of trust that people have in the 3 mediums. So we looked at, obviously, digital audio, connected TV, and social media, and you can see here that the level of trust is significantly higher for digital audio when compared to connected TV and also to social media. So it's 6 percentage points higher than connected TV, and a whopping 23 percentage points higher than social media when it comes to that high level of trust in the medium. It's probably not surprising for social media in terms of where the information is coming from, the misinformation, disinformation that people have, and the concern that people have around social media. But great to see, I suppose, that high level of trust in the medium, and a negligible level of low level of trust then as well. Some of the areas that we explored with people, or came through in some of the verbatims as to why there might be, was just around the fewer misinformation concerns, deemed more authentic, and we saw that in terms of the comparison with connected TV and also with social media then as well. And one of the other kind of key areas is around kind of the experience feels more personalized, and also back to what we talked about earlier too, which is around the control. So you can choose what you want and when you want to consume it. And so therefore you have a higher level of trust in it because you are choosing it, rather than it being delivered to you. Okay, over to you, Rob.
Thank you, Naomi. Look, thanks to both yourself and to the team at Core Research for being such excellent partners on this project. And it's just over to me now to wrap up this presentation element, and then we'll open the floor to the Q&A and to a wider panel discussion also. So look, if I could leave you all with like 3 key takeaways for this, it would be, firstly, adults in Ireland are extremely engaged with digital audio. They're spending more time consuming digital audio than connected TV or social. I suppose, secondly, digital audio gives people that flexibility in their consumption and seamlessly stitches into everyday life for them. It gives advertisers a great opportunity to speak to this engaged audience. And lastly, I suppose digital audio is trusted. We have people's attention and they feel it's more authentic and trusted environment than the likes of CTV and social media also. So I suppose all in all, that's us and the very first look at our Digital Audio's Edge research, looking at why advertisers should be choosing digital audio over connected TV and social. I just want to thank everyone who joined us on the webinar today for spending time with us, particularly on a Friday. So Kieran, I think at this stage, it's back to you.
Thank you, Rob. Really fascinating insights and research. I'm going to ask Ian and Jen to join us now as well. We're going to have a broader discussion about digital audio with the panel. But before we start that, just to say to everybody, if you want to ask a question, if you just type it into the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. I did think I saw a hand raised, but it's actually easier because it's a webinar to actually just type in your question, and I will ask that question on your behalf. So you'll see the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. So just firstly, Rob, the research was commissioned by Bauer. What was the need or the motivation to do research specifically with regard to digital audio?
Yeah, look, I suppose we've all seen the global work studies highlighting the gap between time spent with audio and the advertising investment that it receives. And I suppose as Europe's largest commercial radio broadcaster and Ireland's as well, we feel it essential to ensure that audio is fairly represented within the wider digital media mix. And I suppose while social media and CTV often dominate discussions around digital advertising, we wanted to showcase the unique strengths of digital audio in comparison, particularly in a really rapidly evolving media landscape. And look, at Bauer, we're all around helping brands make informed advertising decisions. And for me, studies like this play a crucial role just in demonstrating that value and impact that digital audio can have.
Yeah, and that very clearly came through in the presentation, and Naomi, you obviously went through it in detail. Could you just tell the audience what you probably found most interesting and perhaps what results surprised you when
Yeah.
you going from the start and commissioned the research and then seeing the results?
Okay, well, I won't talk about who we worked with in terms of what surprised me or what was most interesting, but what
Thanks.
was most what was most interesting for me, and also because it was something that we do at Core where we track consumer mindset on a monthly basis. So when we looked at the frame of mind and people's mindset when they're engaging with and consuming digital audio, connected TV, and also social media, that positive mindset and that significantly higher positive mindset and engagement that digital audio fosters was something that was most interesting to me. So the fact that it's seen as more fulfilling and authentic than social media, not surprising, but interesting to see it demonstrated. And also the fact that people felt more connected and engaged with the content than connected TV. So that was probably what I found most interesting. For surprising, in terms of what was most surprising for me was probably, and it probably shouldn't have been as surprising, but when you see it demonstrated on that slide, just that seamless integration into people's lives and the difference between digital audio and also social media and connected TV. And I think if you even think about that a little bit deeper in terms of surprise, it's that companionship and that area around companionship. And I spoke about, the loneliness issue that we have in society right now. And I think that's really interesting. Just the moments that you can have with digital audio that you can't have with connected TV or you can't have with social media. And for me, that I found that probably the most surprising of all of the research.
Okay, and to Rob, and actually to you, Naomi, as well, the research showed that consumption of digital audio was higher than these big, huge brands within the social media and the connected TV landscape. Why do you think that is the case? What's the reason for that in terms of higher levels of consumption compared to such a mega brand like Facebook, part of the Meta group?
Yeah, do you want to take that first, Naomi, or will I jump?
You go for it, Rob. Yeah.
No worries. Yeah, look, I think digital audio offers a uniquely personal and immersive experience than some other digital formats. They struggle to match it really. So you only have to really look at your own habits on social media, constant doom scrolling or second screening, and it can be overwhelming and has been linked to negative effects on mental health. So I think if we even look at CTV, this adds into kind of our wider screen fatigue. We're all sitting on Zoom here now, and many people feel that a lot throughout their week. So I think Naomi mentioned it in the last piece there, the seamless integration into people's daily lives, as we've seen through the research, whether they're commuting, working, exercising. And I suppose the research reflects the fact that listeners appreciate the flexibility of the medium, as well as that kind of wider and deeper emotional connection and engagement. Where a voice speaks directly to the listener and it creates that sense of trust and companionship, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Naomi, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I'd agree with all of those. I suppose with the research hat on, obviously, when we are talking about claimed consumption then as well. So we have to obviously listen to what people are saying, but add a little bit of caution there as well too. But everything that Rob said, I'd agree with. But the research hat is important to consider the kind of that say-do gap. But yeah.
And with that research hat still on, trust came out very strongly for
Yeah,
digital
yeah.
audio. Do you have reasons or understand why that may be the case?
Yeah, now we didn't probe particularly into this in any great detail with people, but there are verbatims that came through as to why people prefer it or what was good about it and why they might trust it more. So I think that authenticity point that I'm trying to make, that you saw the difference between social media and digital audio, and also for connected TV in terms of authenticity. I think that misinformation is critical when you see the gap between digital audio and social media. So you're choosing who you listen to, be it a podcast or be it on the radio. You probably trust them, you know them, you have a familiarization with them. Versus on social media, you don't know what's going to could potentially pop up, or what you're going to be served then as well in terms of an opinion or a piece of news then as well. Is it true? Is it not? I think that area around personalization too is important, so that the person feels that they have control when they're choosing digital audio, when they're listening to digital audio, then as well to choose what they want to listen to and when they want to listen to it and when they want to consume it. And probably more so as well as less intrusive advertising perhaps might be having an impact then as well. But I can't say conclusively, but they're just some of the hypotheses that we might have as a result of doing this.
Just before we just bring in Jen and Ian, just one other question, probably to you, Rob, is there's a disconnect between, and you've mentioned it, share of consumption digital audio versus share of the ad spend, the total ad spend cake. Why do you think that's the case?
Yeah, look, probably a good one to get the wider agency perspective on as well. But look, from my side, there's obviously that well-documented gap between the time spent and the investment the medium receives. And look, for me, it's not just an Irish problem. This is a global issue. I work with audio publishers across Europe and speak to many across the world, and they all face similar challenges. And I think a major factor to this is that in a world dominated by last click and last touch attribution, audio will unfortunately always lose out to social and the large digital platforms, and traditional media buying habits and maybe some legacy perceptions as well mean that digital audio, and sometimes audio in general, isn't always given the credit it deserves, despite its proven ability to drive engagement and brand recall and emotional connection. And look, like, I'm deeply passionate about audio and I want it to win as a channel, but I think for that to happen, we do need to rethink how we measure its impact. And for me, that means looking beyond standard attribution models, ensuring audio is properly integrated into the back end of MMM models, alongside research initiatives like this, case studies, brand uplift studies, and other measurement advances to truly reflect its value. So it's probably a multifaceted answer, Kieran, but good to get the
actually,
Jen
Rob,
and Ian's view.
Rob, I agree with you. Actually, I think that digital audio has maybe paired itself too much towards attribution. And certainly the solutions that they've looked to apply as being kind of nearly all exclusively attribution based. And what you've done today with this research, but also what you said around the likes of econometrics, attention metrics, anything that actually has an ad stock that appreciates that audio doesn't work in a moment, that there is a delay factor, that if it integrates with people's lives, then they are actually doing something else. You know, you can be walking the dog, like you said, getting the bus. You're not going to click on an ad, then you have a better chance of remembering things. Definitely the measurement would need to improve for that. I think there's also something else though, where digital audio is being almost classified as, well, with radio. And if it's left in that classification, like radio is, I love radio as well, Kieran. Nothing I'll say bad about radio. Radio performs equally as strong in terms of trust, attention as digital audio. It's a very powerful channel. I think there's a bias against radio in terms of some planners, but also some marketers in terms of, basically the time people spend with it. And digital audio is maybe caught in some of that bias. Actually radio is relatively slow growing at the moment, and what people are doing is I'll take some minutes off radio and my plan, and I'll add on digital audio to kind of replace those minutes, and they're not really thinking of kind of a convergent world or how digital audio actually really works. It would be like, from what you've run through today, it would have a lot of parallels to say content marketing and influencer marketing, which money is piling into. But actually digital audio would hold maybe slightly higher trust because the channels that run through. Plus, digital audio is now not just an audio channel, it's also a video channel in many, many ways. So I think that people need to, more and more research is needed to improve the understanding of the channel, and attribution is not that, is not going to do that.
Yeah, that's Jen, just going to bring you in as well, from your perspective in terms of how digital audio fits into the media mix. Lots of really great points made by all the panelists there. So just to get your opinion would be fantastic.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, digital audio is certainly an integral part of the media mix, and it's continuing to grow in its importance, but its most fundamental role is incremental reach. And we're talking about attribution there. I actually think there's like a slightly different angle on why it's not getting its fair share of the media spend at the moment. And it's because the JNLR research is telling us that radio is the be all and end all. It's getting so much reach, so much frequency. So it's positioning digital audio as almost a nice to have rather than something that is going to deliver incremental reach. And that's a really, you know, fundamental part of the plan. But it fits into the plan in different ways. So we will adjust the investment level depending on the audience. So for instance, younger demos will run anything from maybe 30% of our audio investment into digital audio, but there's also standalone digital audio campaigns where 100% of the audio budget is going into them. And then for older demos, it averages between 10 to 20% of the audio mix. And what I'd add in there is, you know, again, the planning for audience is made trickier by the available tools that we currently have and the mixed messaging around consumption. So it's not one size fits all, and it's not easy to plan either.
Okay. And just to follow on that point in terms of the planning tools that are not available, maybe both Ian and Jen, you might come in an ideal world, what would you like that to be? What would you like the sector to provide agencies to help you plan better?
I think
I don't
something
mind.
that's a
Yeah,
bit more
sorry.
unified, you know, like the platforms at the moment, it's really fragmented. And we can compare it to social media nearly, you know, all the social providers and Google very much in their own walled gardens will report on their own pieces. But I suppose there's lots of other, you know, unified tools or research pieces that help us with that. So Global Web Index, GWI, is a really good example because the platforms and the panels there are so well established. But I think within Ireland, we do need something. We need the providers to come together and try and think about, you know, what a unified approach would look like.
Okay. Yeah. Do you want to add anything there, Ian?
Yeah, it's more on to that point of convergence where, like, even if you try and do anything through digital audio now, you're really not. You're kind of whoever the personality is behind the mic. You want a connection with them, or you want there's, like I said earlier, there's a big video element to it as well. Like even beyond, say, podcasts, Spotify is a pretty significant video network itself as of last year, and it's a tricky one because actually some of the research here I think is a brilliant start. Like, you know, but when we look at digital audio versus CTV or digital audio versus social media, I think we got to move beyond that for the next stage too, because I think it's right to raise the agenda today, but it should be, where does digital audio improve that media mix? I think, Jen, you touched a bit on that as well, but it is about the media mix because reach is now so fragmented. So we have to talk about, like, it's a much bigger issue to solve, and kind of, you know, solving within radio, I think, leaves digital audio within that kind of misclassification or silo classification of what it actually really delivers. So, you know, from a planning point of view, from agencies, but from industry as well, we need to just have more and more research that helps us look beyond maybe an old world view of what channels are. Even AV sounds very dated in 2025, you know, but I would still imagine that's on a number of media plans.
Okay.
For sure.
And maybe I'll go back to you, Rob, but actually it's to everybody really. But initially there would be a view, and we've discussed this before, Rob, that audio, when it goes back to the kind of measurement you get with visual digital in terms of tracking metrics, addressability, there's a kind of a discussion in the background that audio doesn't deliver the same type of data that you can get with other forms of digital. So, you know, how much of that is a myth, or what can digital audio provide that people may not be aware of in that area?
Yeah, like, I suppose there's a couple of things on it, Kieran. First one's probably sometimes audio is asked to do the dual role, especially in digital audio. It can be asked to do the brand building piece, but then also the performance piece behind it. And sometimes we can get briefs in and the brief says one thing, but we know the background tech is looking for and drawing parallels and comparing and contrasting to others. So I think that's probably the first piece. The other element is like, in a world of data passing and signals, digital audio has a huge amount of it. We're getting on-device signals, we're getting a lot of content signals, we're getting a huge amount of information passed through. And I think what it needs is it needs a more collaborative approach with agencies and partners to see, okay, well, this is what we have here. What helps to plug into your planning tools? What helps to make better decisions in MMM models, or econometric studies, whatever is being used in the background? Because I think I would speak on behalf of the majority of partners in Ireland. We're open to sharing that data. We're open to passing that data. We all want to collectively improve the industry and the medium and the channel. So I suppose it's just getting clarity on what that is and can be.
Okay, yeah. Anybody else want to jump in on that point? All makes sense. I mean, one key question that comes up sometimes is, in the related area, is the CPM of digital audio versus linear audio. And obviously it's more expensive and sometimes there's challenges there. Ian, your view on that?
Yeah, I would say, look, when I look at it and kind of go, well, if you use it to replace radio minutes, which is kind of what some planners might do, or kind of how it's maybe being miscategorized, like I said, if you're using it like that, and you look at digital audio being 4 times the price of radio, that seems expensive. Or if it's twice the price of social, that's expensive, and it would be expensive even with some of the like really positive metrics that we've kind of analysis that we've seen today. But the cost of it being expensive lies in how misunderstood it is. So it is expensive until we solve for that problem, and that's the kind of truth. Unfortunately, like, we do need a better understanding of it. We need to take it out of being purely attribution play, because it doesn't actually appreciate like I said, in the old days you would have ad stock, or if you do an attention study, you'll see radio jump to the top of the list. Like, it cuts through for the cost it is. Like that four times the cost of radio, or kind of being twice the cost of social media. That doesn't look so expensive when you actually see what the payback is on it. But we need to see more and more of that information, and it needs to filter into plans. At the moment, that's not there. There's not enough of it. And it's great to see this step forward, because Rob and Naomi had said, we need to see the Irish numbers. Can't just kind of keep pulling from, like, the US and UK are quite significantly different markets, because it's bigger there, so I actually more and more research in this area, because we can't prove a premium without that, but still, at the same time, and in the meantime, I don't know how you justify 4 times the cost of radio.
Well, I think the key thing is, I think Rob made this point creatively, that I think audio, and actually Peter Field at the Sounding Out event 2023 talked about, it's the one medium that actually delivers really well at both long-term brand building and activation. It's, of all the media, it can do both really well, but sometimes then you have to work with, what is the creative message? Back to your point, Rob, what is the actual brief? What is the real brief? Is it long-term brand building? Is it short-term activation? And now I think its strength, that it can do both, can sometimes be its challenge, because you have to understand what each brand's brief and objectives are. But I'm actually, there's quite a good few questions coming in on the Q&A, so I'm going to just read them out, and I'll ask them to the most relevant person. So the first one is, do you have any stats on how much users are fast forwarding through podcast ads? Now, I know that wasn't part of this particular piece of research. I am not aware specifically of any, certainly no Irish research specific in relation to that. Rob, I don't know if you have any experience on that globally. I haven't seen anything in that area.
No, look, podcast measurement is another piece, not for another day. I'm not trying to kick the question away, but there's global struggles with podcasts, and it's due to the unique nature of it. And we see this in ad tech all the time. A lot of even our like programmatic DSPs are used, the same ones we use for CTV and display, and then we wonder why they don't work as well. Podcast measurement is a piece that needs work, and that's down to the unique nature of, you know, a large percentage of files are downloaded rather than streamed. So again, it's hard to get that exact signal passed over in terms of listen through rate, but it's something that's actively being worked on by the ad tech providers and also the likes of IAB in their podcast measurement version 2.2, which is out. So I think there's a lot of work that's happening there, but on actual Irish research and stats on it, I wouldn't have, no.
I do think as well as development of the podcast is, it's funny when you talk about all the technology that's there because of the issue in terms of download versus listening, and because the huge number of podcasts, claimed listening is becoming really important again. So I know in the States and the UK, Edison have produced a podcast ranker research, which gives a uniform kind of ranking rather than hearing from individual providers. And I think that's maybe the way, because I do think when it comes to claimed research, I think people will remember podcasts they've listened to. So I think
Absolutely.
that's another area that's going to develop, I think.
And we've done that actually in some of our Bauer regions. So we've worked to collaborate with kind of other industry partners in Sweden to create that kind of podcast index. And we actually just launched one in Portugal with Salvador and the team down there about 3 months ago. So again, I think you'll start to see some of those pieces come out of the market, which will be super helpful, I think, for the agencies as well.
I think the advances in attention tracking as well, and how kind of, well, how much more available it is across markets. It shows you what works. So, you know, you're actually not waiting to see kind of what clicks or whatever. It's a little bit like, you know, viewability. I don't know why people got so obsessed with viewability, really, because if you're looking at the information, you'd know where ads were working, where they weren't. Like too much of a hygiene, and maybe when you're talking about skipping ads and stuff like that, but if you're able to pay attention to data and you're able to track it appropriately with something like attention metrics, you're going to see what works and what doesn't work. So if people are skipping the ads, that channel is not going to work. If people are kind of paying attention to the ads, it is going to work. So I think that, you know, some of the other measurement that Rob touched on earlier is quite critical to kind of just, you know, getting around or solving for questions like that.
Thanks, Ian. And actually, our team will say at the end to the next webinar, which is exactly in that area, but I'll come back to that at the end. Just the next question. The research is really useful for selling the concept into the decision makers for growing digital audio ad investments in budgets. We know that radio is still very strong. Do you see it taking from that line of investment? Maybe Jen, would you like to, because as a person, and you discussed it earlier, I think, in terms of the media mix and your investment strategies, to have a view on that question, whether it's going to, you know, digital take from radio, or whether it can be incremental in terms of investment.
Yeah, I mean, in core, our Outlook report that we published in the last couple of weeks shows that we forecast digital audio spend is going to grow by around 12% this year. That budget has to come from somewhere. It's probably not going to be incremental budget to our clients. Not necessarily going to be pulled from radio, though. I think it really depends on, you know, the individual brief for the audience, for instance. But at the moment, we are seeing that some of the digital audio budgets are coming from radio spend. But it's just as likely that it could come from social, where in some cases we're over investing there, or other platforms as well. So it's really not one size fits all.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense.
I don't think I can give my view on that, because I think Jen and Ian will know where I say it should come from. So
I think one area that may actually not help that is where budgets are held. So, you know, like actually audio and digital audio probably sells well into agencies, you know, and clients are represented by agencies, ad agencies maybe, or media agencies. Less so for maybe PR agencies who also might run social media or influencer accounts, and likewise in-house teams. So actually there's probably a pool of money where if you were getting the right media mix and you knew where audio kind of improved that media mix, agencies will probably get it quicker. But that's we're a part of that level of spend, you know, within marketing budgets, whereas actually some of that is actually decided outside of media agencies. So I think, you know, if you really wanted digital audio to have a bit of its day, they need to be sold to as well.
It's a really good point, Ian. I think definitely there's a rise in, D2C brands as well who are very, very heavy and the likes of podcast advertising and everything outside of it. I think the only other one point I would add to that is, sometimes there can be different teams planning it. Ian, to your point there, you might have a programmatic team, and then in some agencies, they'll think that might be the box ticked for digital audio, but you've got creative solutions like dynamic audio, podcast host reads, podcast sponsorships, 360 campaigns with video integration, podcast product placements, and everything in between. So I suppose it's just, and that's back to the publishers ensuring that we're doing the correct job in positioning those solutions as well.
You have like Meta who will say, you just give us the campaign, we can do the ads for you to help you kind of spend through our channels, and it's a little bit difficult from digital audio point of view, particularly if the ask is kind of dual tasked, to your point earlier, Rob.
I think as well, the structuring, I've always said it, and it can be a challenge, and I know different agencies structure differently, but if you have performance marketing teams, often performance marketing teams are pure play digital, and often they may not have a broader perspective on the role that both digital audio and radio can play in performance marketing. And there is a lot of research. It's on the Radio Centre Ireland website, both Irish and UK research in the whole area of the ability for all forms of audio to drive performance, to drive website traffic. And back to your point, Ian, it is slightly different because there can be a delay factor with audio, much more than other media because it's a passive medium. So the great benefit, which Naomi talked to brilliantly there, was you can be doing other things and it integrates perfectly into your daily life. But sometimes when you hear a message that you find important or interesting, you will not act on it immediately, you'll act on it later. And both the UK and the Irish research consistently show that there can be a delayed factor, but in both markets, hugely powerful medium in driving performance. And just have to think about that and how agencies work in terms of performance marketing specifically, because often that is dominated by the social and the search channels. Just the next question, and this is a really broad one. I might go to you, Rob, on this one first, but you probably can't answer this one in the few minutes we have left, but it's what impact do you think AI will have on digital audio? So,
look, it's something that we're very close to Empower, and we have kind of joint capability teams centrally looking at this quite heavily in digital audio overall. But look, I think it has the ability to disrupt digital audio in many ways, but it also has its benefits in a huge number of ways. So we're looking at everything from, things like automated editing to make that flow out to our audience easier. There's audio enhancement tools from like noise reduction, cleanup. There's help through voice synthesis and voice cloning that can happen throughout that. Also content recommendation engines. Like at the end of the day, AI has been present, within our workflows in many ways. It's just a lot more to the forefront now. Our ad tech is AI powered. We're looking at how we can create mock and pitch audio through the likes of voice synthesis, and through targeting options and data offerings as well. It's probably omnipresent, as I assume it is now in most digital media channels.
Pretty good.
Yeah, Jen made a great point as well, Kieran. Sorry, just to jump in on walled gardens, and AI will be like an essential tool in being able to essentially have a platform that would buy around them, be able to connect a full funnel around commerce media, which will give digital audio a bigger role in terms of direct performance.
Great. Listen, that's great. I just there's one other question I definitely want to ask before we end, because again, it's probably going to go back to you, Rob, because it's a really key one. It says, how does traditional digital audio advertising fit into a world where YouTube video and Spotify video is being pitched as the future for podcasting? Are those video platforms actually closer to social media and how people think about them? So obviously there is some trend in terms of YouTube and in terms of people consuming podcasts on that platform. So just to get your thoughts on that.
Absolutely, yeah. And look, we have amazing content teams and distribution teams that are much better informed to speak to this to me. But look, overall, we ultimately see the likes of YouTube video, Spotify video as a distribution channel. As long as it's one that we can, monetize and work with partners on, it's one we're happy to be present within. But again, I think if we take a step back, when we look at digital audio advertising, it is that digital radio podcasting, and music streaming. And then within that, you know, video podcasting is one element of it. Yes, YouTube is rising in terms of the consumption of video podcasts, but we're still seeing massive growth in traditional audio consumption as well.
Yeah, great. Listen,
So,
many thanks. One last, very specific question actually to you, Naomi.
Yeah.
Great presentation and opinions. Thanks to everyone on the panel. Naomi, can you please recap on the breakdown of the 13 hours of digital audio consumption every week?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So for digital audio, so we had digital radio was 4 hours, podcasts was 2 hours, paid for music streaming was 4 hours, and the free music streaming was 3 hours. So that adds up to your 13 in total. Yeah.
Okay, many thanks. We are just out of time, so I want to firstly thank everybody for attending. I know it's busy and it is Friday, so I really do appreciate. We had a huge number of participants to the webinar, and I would also like to thank Jen, Ian, Naomi, and Rob for a fantastic presentation and a great discussion. We could talk for a lot more minutes and hours, but unfortunately, our time is up. Just a quick plug for the next webinar, which is happening in May, and an intriguing title is How the Irish Invented the Attention Economy. So keep a lookout for that on the newsletters, on social platforms. We'll have dates and confirmed times for that shortly, and that will take place in May. So many thanks to everybody who participated in the panel and the presentation, and many thanks to you all for attending the webinar, and we'll see you all very soon. Thanks a lot. Goodbye.
thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.